So, um, recently I got a copy of the Book of Mormon, and the first page is really intense. It says this guy gets a vision from God and he trembles with fear. And I have trembled before as a result of psychiatric drugs. And what I came to realize after reading the Book of Mormon was that when I trembled from the Haldol and paliperidone, it was because it was fear. I was trembling from fear. Fear of what, you might ask? It's the fear of the apocalypse, because the Haldol and the paliperidone, essentially what it does, I came to realize, is it's an instant self-realization drug where you don't experience any hallucinations, but your third ventricle enlarges and your cerebrospinal fluid in your brain, in your third ventricle, gets increased, which is a vehicle for the I am, um, which is a vehicle for self realization and awakening. So essentially, what the psychiatric drugs, Haldol and paliperidone, did to me was it downloaded images and knowledge, actually, into my pineal gland of the apocalypse. The psychiatric drugs they gave me in the psych wards downloaded the knowledge of the impending apocalypse into my pineal gland, and that caused me to shake my legs, to want to run away from this coming danger. And I only realized that when I read the first page of the Book of Mormon. I had a dream, and it was terrifying. It was the most terrified I've ever been in my life. I was camping outside in this parking lot back when I was homeless. I was in this tent, um, and this was after I had received life activation at the Modern Mystery School. So I had these hydromancy liquid drops that I would take morning and evening, and I thought to myself in a convoluted way, well, the Jewish day starts at night at 6 p.m., so I'll take the morning drops at night. Bad mistake. I had a terrible nightmare of the apocalypse, and here's how it went. Um, Essentially, if you've ever seen the movie A Quiet Place, there's demonic monsters that hunt based on sound. Um, and they were in my dream, in my nightmare, and I dreamt that if I were to open the zipper on my tent, that someone would stab me, because it was the apocalypse and it was do as thou wilt, and it was total Satanism, run rampant, hell on earth. Um, all the characters from all the major mythologies and movies and religions came into this nightmare. Harry Potter was there, and the other characters in Harry Potter were saying, "You're a wizard, Harry, and you got to do this." And Jesus was this guy who regulated food distribution, um, and just like Joseph did in Egypt. And in fact, in my nightmare, Jesus fled to Egypt, um, and he went there to conquer, to regulate food distribution. And I dreamt that at the pyramid in Egypt there was this great awakening, this black awakening of the morning star rose over the temple in Egypt, or rose through the temple in Egypt. Sorry, I speak of it as a temple because that's how my heart feels. The pyramid in Egypt, uh, the middle pyramid in Egypt, the morning star rose through the middle pyramid of Egypt into the sky, And this wasn't any ordinary awakening. This was the apocalypse, the cosmic apotheosis of the Antichrist taking place in the middle pyramid of the third temple. And I dreamt that I was smoking beetle dung. Uh, I was smoking dried beetle dung and having these hallucinations. And that was my nightmare. And it was completely terrifying. Um, I felt like I was going to die. I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep for a matter of hours. Um, and the only reason I had these apocalyptic visions was because of the psychiatric drugs that they had given me in the BC and Manitoba hospitals. Um, it's quite disturbing, and I didn't realize that these drugs, these psychiatric drugs, Haldol and paliperidone, were downloading apocalyptic visions into my pineal gland and transmitting them throughout my body so that I now had knowledge of the apocalypse in my flesh and bones. And it's highly disturbing, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Um, it's bitter medicine. This These psychiatric drugs are bitter medicine. Essentially, Kabbalistically speaking, um, I'm all fire, which means I'm all in the head. Um, and there's something else I could say about that, but I'll just keep going. Um, I'm all in my head, and the feet are water. So, um, what what the what what the psychiatric drugs did was they made me move my feet, shake my feet, and shake my legs, and pace around, and involuntarily, by the way, unconsciously. So what that did was that balanced out my um, four worlds, my Kabbalah's four worlds, and it helped me pace around, and it speeded up my spiritual awakening. Um, I would say without the psych wards and without the psychiatric drugs, I would not be in the spiritually in the spiritual process that I'm in right now. I would say that the psych ward drugs, as much as I hate them, they actually quickened my spiritual awakening and self-realization, and they quickened my path to knowing myself because they gave me an instant self-realization um, as I downloaded the knowledge of the apocalypse and my role in it um, through drugs.